Good morning. Thank you for joining us. We are so excited to have you here today to walk through Daily Math Fluency with Brittany Goerig. Before we get started, and we're going to do so in just a moment, there's a couple of things that I want to go through logistically. So in the webinar panel that you have, there is a section for questions. I encourage you to ask questions. What you put there, I will see, and we will go ahead and field those to Brittany and allow her to answer those out loud today. So please ask questions. Please also make sure that your line is muted. That's where your audio settings are. And you shouldn't have to do much there, but definitely relay your questions through the chat box there. Also, we will be having a giveaway. So if you are here through the end, we will give away one Daily Math Fluency kit for one lucky attendee, so stay tuned for that. And before I pass it off to Brittany, I am going to just launch a quick poll. I want to get a feel for what grade level you might be and see what our audience is today. So go ahead and answer this. You should be seeing the poll. Yep, here they are coming in. You guys are so good. You're fast. Lots of administrators, curriculum coordinators. Awesome. Just so that you can see. Okay, we are going to pass things off here to Brittany. So Brittany, I'm going to go ahead and let you take it over. You are the expert, so it's all yours.
Okay, thank you. So thank y'all very much for joining us this morning. My name is Brittany Goerig. I am the product manager at hand2mind for math. Just a little bit about who I am. I've been in education for 20 plus years. I was a classroom teacher 17 of those years. I've also been a consultant for our regional service center here in Texas. And I'm also the lead author of Daily Math Fluency. I'm looking forward to working with you today and hopefully providing you with some information that you can go forth and either work with your students on or work with your teachers. So we're going to begin by first we're going to, Kristen, I'm having trouble clicking the slide, so it's not clicking. So just 1 second, having just a quick technical piece.
Try again.
Okay. It was working. Oh, there we go. Okay, there we go. Sorry about that, everyone. So our goal today is really going to empower you to use math talks and number strings to develop numeracy and really be able to help you see how daily math fluency plays a role in this development. Then, so our agenda today is going to be what we're going to cover is going to be, we're going to be looking at numeracy, that is. We're going to define that so that we all have a shared definition. Then we're going to experience a math talk together. And then we're going to look at how to help students catch numeracy. You'll understand that kind of phrase in just a few minutes. And we're going to do that using number strings and math talks. And then we're going to briefly talk about how they work together. And we're going to really dive into how daily math fluency really helps this idea of helping our students construct numeracy. And then we have the pleasure of getting to hear from Catherine Castillo from Springfield ISD in Missouri. She is going to be able to, she's going to talk to us about how where their journey has been in promoting this idea of numeracy and how they've actually used daily math fluency in their district. And then we have some really good sneak peeks of some of our new products for 2020. So we are going to get started. I have a little delay on my screen, so I'm sorry that it's taking so long to kind of flip through the slides. So just wanted to let y'all know that. But when we think of numeracy, our definition that we're going to build off of is really this ability to use mathematical relationships to reason about numbers and numerical concepts. So when I look at numeracy, a lot of times I hear a lot of people saying things like that talking about the components of numeracy. So they're looking at the idea of flexibility, that we want our students to be flexible in their understanding. We want them to be efficient, accurate. But these other few words I think are interesting when you think about numeracy and you think about math. And one of the reasons why I think they're interesting is because I always reflect back on my own numeracy or even on my math instruction as I was growing up. And I really never associated the word creativity with the word with math. And that could have been because I grew up where my teacher told me what to do. And because I was a great memorizer, I just kind of regurgitated what my teacher said. I now know that math really can be and should be a creative subject, and numeracy has a lot to do with that. So how do we get kids to be creative in their understanding of numbers? Algorithms is another component of numeracy. So when I talk about algorithms and numeracy together, what I mean by that is that algorithms are important, but a kid should know when to use an algorithm and when not to use an algorithm. So when we think about this idea of numeracy, they really have this understanding that they know when to use it and when not. Then the next thing is is the idea of mental math. So when we think about mental math, when I ask teachers, what does that mean to you? A lot of times I hear, that's just kids doing math in their head. And I totally agree with that definition, but I also think it's a little more than that. I think it can be added to say that it's really using your head to reason about the mathematics. And what I mean by that is that when students are getting older, they are manipulating larger numbers. And so when they start manipulating those larger numbers, sometimes they need to keep track of those mental steps on paper. It is still doing mental math as long as they are thinking and reasoning about the numbers. And then the last component I want to talk about is this idea of speed. Now, I don't want anybody to be horrified that I put speed on here because I'm not talking about time test. What I'm talking about is when we think about numeracy and we think about our students, our kids are constructing a lot of different strategies. And the last thing we want to happen to them is for them to get bogged down in those strategies. So when I associate the word speed with numeracy, what I mean is that we have to get our kids to be able to choose strategies for numbers quickly. We don't want them to be bogged down in all these different strategies and not being able to figure out when they see those numbers what strategy is best for those numbers. But I really feel like the best thing is a quote by Christina Toldevold, who really sums up this idea of numeracy. And she says that numeracy can't be taught, it has to be caught. I think that's important for us to recognize when we think about numeracy, that numeracy is something that we have to help kids catch, that we can't just tell kids how to do something. So hopefully today, you're going to see some ways that we can help kids catch numeracy. Before we do that, though, we have to understand where our kids are coming from and where they are going. So Pam Harris, the author of Middle School and High School Numeracy, has done a lot of research on the idea of how students develop mathematical reason. So how are they able to reason about those numbers? And so I love this graphic that she has, and if you want to know more, please go to her. She has a website that you can go and learn more about this. But she really talks about how students start at counting strategies. That's where we start. So in kindergarten, we are working extremely hard for kids to be counting. And then we nudge them to even count on. So thinking of 2 plus 3 as either 2, 3, 4, 5, or even better, 3, 4, 5. Because then when they go into first and second grade, we're expecting them to think additively, which means now we're not wanting to think about our numbers as 1, 1, 1. We want them to think about their numbers in their parts or in their chunks. So for a problem like 8 plus 7, we want a kid to say, oh, 8 plus 7 is 15 because 8 and 2 is 10 and 5 more is 15. So we just have to think about the number 7 as 5 and 2. Because then what that does is it builds onto multiplicative reasoning. Multiplicative reasoning is the idea now we want kids in 3rd grade and up to start think about their numbers as groups. And not only just groups, but groups within groups. And what I mean by that is this. So for a problem like 6 times 7, we can say, oh, I know 6 times 7 is 42 because 6 times 6 is 36 plus another group of 6. So you just had to think about your 7 as a group as 6 times, as 6 groups of 6 plus one group of 6. So that is a different way of thinking about your numbers, because then eventually by the time they get to middle school, they have to start thinking proportionally. And so proportional reasoning builds on this idea of multiplicative reasoning. So what happens is we need to make sure that when our students are developing their reasoning skills, they're going through all of these different pieces because each one builds upon each other. We're going to see how that does that today as we go through this session together. So let's go ahead and get to work. Of course, we're going to experience some math because this is a math webinar. So we're going to start with a problem like 25 times 28. So I just want everyone to really think and reason about the numbers 25 times 28. And I want you to come up with the product of that. And if you want, you're more than welcome to write how you are thinking about it in the chat box or in the question box. Please feel free to do so. But I'm going to stop talking for just a few minutes. Not for a few minutes. I'm going to give you maybe a minute to really think and reason. How would you solve 25 times 28? Okay, so I hope I gave you enough time. I know that probably wasn't quite a minute, but what we're going to do is we're going to have what we might call a math talk. Now, this again, since this is a webinar situation, we're going to have to do it a little bit differently, but we're going to try to get the gist of what does this math talk look like. So if I posted 25 times 28, and I just want to know what is 25 times 28. And so I would ask people to tell me, and so you either put some of those in there, and so I see like somebody, ooh, I like that. So that's a 25 times 25 plus 25 times 3. Okay, nice. So you thought about 28 as 25 times 25 as 25 and 3, and so you did 25 times 25 plus 25 times 3. That's a really nice way of thinking about that. So decomposing that 28 into 25 and 3. It's an interesting way. I think I also saw some other ways. So I wonder, did anybody think about this? So I wonder did anyone think about it like this? So they see 25 times 28 as not 25 times 28, but they might know what's 25 times 30. So they might know 25 times 30, and so you knew that was 750, but that's 2 groups too many. So you had to remove 2 groups of 25. So 750 minus 50, 700. I wonder if anybody thought of that way. Let's look at another way. Okay. Just 1 second. It's not wanting to advance. Okay. What about this way? I wonder, did anyone do something that we call double and halving? So if you double the 25, that gets you 50, and you halve the 28, that gets you to 14, which could be nice. However, some people are like, yeah, 50 times 14, that's nice, but I can make that even nicer. What if I just double again the 50 to 100 and halve the 14 to a 7? So 100 times 7 is 700. I wonder how many people did it that way. let's look at another way that somebody might have thought about in here. Let's see. What about this way? So this one's interesting. Did anyone think about decomposing the 28 into factors of 4 and 7? So you automatically then reassociate the 4 with 25. So 25 times 4 is 100. And then you just have to do 100 times 7, which is 700. I wonder if anybody did something like that. I see that a lot of other people did some other things like 20 quarters and 8 quarters. That's how you thought about it. Those are really nice ways of thinking about it. And if we had more time, I would love to spend really seeing those. But I want us just to think about 2 of those ways. So I want you to look at the second, the middle one, and the bottom one. And I want you to think about what is similar to those and what is different about those. So take a moment and think about what is similar and what is different. So did anyone think that one way that they're similar is they both ended at 100 times 7? So they both ended in this idea of 100 times 7. I wonder if anyone thought that. And I wonder again, what property of operation is this based on? Did anyone think about why does this work? Why does doubling and halving work? Why can I decompose a factor into factors and reassociate them? Why do those two strategies work? So I wonder if anybody saw that. Like they both are using the associative property. So in the top one, it's about thinking about that 28 as 2 times 14 is really what we're doing when we're doubling and halving, right? So then we're getting to that 50 times 14, because then I can just do 2 times 25, which is 50, and then times 14. Whereas 25, 28, they just went straight to, ooh, maybe they know something about quarters that I can do 25 times 4 because that's going to get me to that nice 100. So I'm going to think about 28 as 4 times 7. Those are both based on the associative property of multiplication. I think it's interesting that we need to think about the strategies we are promoting in our classrooms, that we are promoting strategies that are based on these properties of operations. Because what happens is we are intuitively using the properties of operations. We may not know that that's called, our students may not know that that's called the associative property. However, they're actually doing the associative property when they're doing strategies like this. If you look at the top one, that one's based off the distributive property of multiplication. So thinking about what strategies we give our students is very important, because we want to make sure that they are based on these ideas of properties of operations. So what we just kind of experienced, not in the most authentic situation, but is what we call a math talk, that it's that one problem, it elicits multiple strategies. Y'all even had some great other strategies. I wish I could have also shared those ways. But it gives you that opportunity to compare strategies. So we actually compared that middle one and that bottom one. We wanted to see what things were similar, what things were different. We also want to give kids opportunities to turn and talk, and a webinar is not the easiest way to do that. But some of you may be sitting by somebody so that you could turn and talk. But really giving those opportunities for students to clarify understanding of someone else's strategy. So if you didn't understand double and halve, it might be advantage for you to hear someone talk about double and halve, and then have you kind of explain back in your own words what that means. That's giving those opportunities during the math talk. Then the other thing that we need to recognize is that in a math talk, really what we're focusing on is that ability to choose a strategy from already constructed strategies. So it really gives kids opportunities to look at numbers first and decide what's best for those numbers. So, I I love this quote from John Vanderwall about shifting our mindset of our teaching, because I think it's very interesting that he wrote this back in 1994, but he really talks about that there's a major shift is called for from an environment that focuses on getting answers to one that focuses on the thinking process itself. If you think about that math talk, was the answer the focus? Or was the focus more about how kids are thinking about those numbers? So math talks are great to help in this shift that we need to shift in our math education. But I think more importantly, if you read the very bottom part of this quote, I think that's very important to understand that we as administrators, we as teachers, as educators have to realize that teaching through sense making in problem solving is very different from teaching rules to get answers. And if that is the case, then we need to make sure that we have things that we can use in our classroom that help make this shift more manageable. So we're going to talk about what we can do to do that. So we are going to look at how can we help our kids be flexible with those numbers. How can we get kids to look at 25 times 28 and see 25 times 28 in all those different ways? I think the solution to that is really this idea of number strings. So we're going to participate in a couple of different number strings pretty quickly, just so that you know, but I really wanted to hone in on, I want K2 to recognize where is your part in this idea of numeracy? And then we're going to look at where does 3-5 or 3-8, where do y'all fall in this idea? So we're going to experience two different ones. So what I'm going to do in this number string is I'm going to flash up, and we'll see how quick I can actually do this because we have a little delay, but I'm going to flash up a dot pattern, and y'all are going to think about how many, and then how do you see it? So that's going to be the question. So here we go. Here's the first one. So the question is how many? I wonder if y'all all said, I think I saw 4. But then I wonder, how did you see 4? So I wonder if anybody saw the top 2 and the bottom 2, or the first 2 on the left and the 2 on the right. Or did someone say, no, I just thought about a square and I see 4. So if I was in the classroom, I'd be making sure I was circling all of those different ways. So let's look at the next one. Y'all ready? How many? So how many of you said 6? And I wonder how many of you said 6 because you saw it as 3 and 3, and then you combine that as 6. That's a lot of times what I hear. Was there anybody though in this group that's like, no, I didn't see it like that. I saw it like this. I saw it as 4, and then I saw the 2 on the outside. I wonder how many students would see that. We just had that 4 structure, and then we can say, oh, well, I know that's 4, 5, 6. That's a really nice way of looking at 6 there. So I know 4, and I can just count on 5, 6. Let's look at another one. How many? So how many of you said, that's 5, that's a pattern on a dice, it's a pattern on a domino, I know that structure. I bet you a lot of people are like, yeah, I just know that is 5, because that's one of those common structures. Let's look at the next one though. How many? How many of you were like, yeah, I saw that same 5, and then I could just see those 2, so if I know 5, I can just go 6, 7. Here's the thing, when kids say, oh, I see that as 7, and I know it's 7 because it's 5 and 2, one of the questions I want to make sure and ask them is, how does it help them to see it as 5 and 2? If they say it helps them to see 5 and 2 because they went 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, then it doesn't help them to see it as 5 and 2. What helps them see it as 5, what's helpful about seeing it as 5 and 2 is that I can hold on to 5, and then I can just go 6, 7. That's what we want to make sure we're reiterating to our students. So let's look at one more. How many? How many were like, yeah, I saw that 5 again, so I know that's 5. And then I saw all those individual ones. So I might count up. I know some of you are like, no, I might just go 5 and 2 and 2. So there are definitely different ways. But what you just experienced was what we call a number string. So this is the number string you experienced. The idea here is that it was constructing counting on. Let's look at what a number string is. It is definitely a series of related math problems designed to help students construct a particular strategy. So remember Christina Toldabo's quote that says, numeracy can't be taught, it has to be caught. This is a way to help students catch numeracy. It encourages students to be efficient. So if students are counting everything, we're now seeing how we can nudge kids to start to count on. The teacher strategically chooses who shares by asking questions and to find out the target strategy. So that one that looked like a lot of people might have said, oh, I know it's 6 because of the doubles, 3 and 3. That's a great way, but that in that number string isn't what I was looking for. It's not that I wouldn't recognize that a kid said that, because that's a great way of seeing it. But what I would do is I just say, did anyone see something different? I'm looking for that kid who saw it as 4 and then 5, 6. Teachers model students' thinking. So I would be modeling that thinking on the board. And remember that this is a 10 to 15 minute routine. A number string is. It's no longer than that. It's supposed to be quick, but it's the idea is it's constructing strategies. Pam Harris says this best when she says that, you know, they build relationships and connections in learners so that strategies become the natural outcome. Just to give you an idea where counting comes across the grade levels, let's just look at this chart right here. The strategy counting on doesn't just work for whole numbers. You can see that it works when we get into multi-digit whole numbers, but think about fractions. 4/5 plus 1/5. It's just 1/5 away from 4/5. That's just like counting up. If you look at 4 and 7/10 plus 2 and 1/10, well, you might say, well, you could do 4 and 7/10 plus 2, so that's 6 and 7/10, and then you just have to count up a tenth. So counting on is not something that just is for developing in K1 and 2, but it is definitely something that's going to go across the grade levels. Let's do one more. So if I asked you, what is 10 times 6? So in a classroom, I'd ask them what array that was. They'd say it's a 10 by 6. How do you know? What is it? Oh, it's 60. How do you know? Well, maybe you can count by your 10 6 times, and I would make sure to have that conversation. Let's look at the next one, though. The next problem is this. What is 9 times 6? I wonder, does anybody notice something on this one? Does anyone realize that that first array that's right there is really just a 10 by 6 with a 1 by 6 missing? So for 9 times 6, y'all can think 10 times 6 minus 1 times 6. It's a really nice way of thinking about your 9s. Let's look at another one. What's 10 times 8? I know you all know that. It's 80. But what's 9 times 8? I wonder again, do you see that relationship between 10 and 9? Do you see that 9 times 8 can be thought of as 10 times 8 minus a group of 8 with 72? 9 times 7. Oh, did I forget a problem here? I wonder, did anyone, when they saw 9 times 7 this time, did anyone go, oh, I can just think of 10 times 7, and then I can just subtract that group of 7? That, what you just experienced again, is very quick. It would not go that quickly in a room, but very quick, a number string. It's this idea that we can use our 10s to help us with our 9s. And so again, number strings are a series of related problems. It brings those things out. And that visual model is very important to help kids start to see how these strategies are working. So looking at multiplicative reasoning across the grade levels, so here's that idea of over and under. Where can that be helpful? Well, now 59 times 6, well, can't you think about 60 times 6? Or even better, 99 times 24. 100 times 24 minus a group? It works for fractions. So I can think of 4 times 32, and then I can just subtract a fourth of 32 away. Wow, that's a really nice way of thinking about those. So these strategies are not strategies that just work in one grade level. These are things that work throughout, and they build upon each other. So what we've talked about are number strings, which are that series of related problems. And then we started off by that math talk, really showing you that when we do a math talk, our goal is eliciting multiple strategies and really helping them make connections. But what I want to make sure you understand is that these both work together. It is very important that we do both. So we can't have a really good math talk unless kids have strategies in their pocket. Number strings really help that strategy work. So let's look at how do we build math fluency? How do we build this idea of getting kids to be accurate, efficient, and flexible and think flexibly and recognize when one strategy is more? Our solution here is going to be talking about daily math fluency. Before we get into that, though, we just want to think about those instructional decisions. So if your goal is to construct a strategy, then you would want to use a number string. If your goal is to compare and connect strategies, then you would use a math talk. So how does Daily Math Fluency do this? How does Daily Math Fluency help our students construct strategies and really provide opportunities for kids then to apply those strategies? So we're just going to look at Daily Math Fluency. And so in Daily Math Fluency, it comes with a teacher guide. So if your teachers are not familiar with some of the strategies, we actually have definitions of each one of those strategies and how to model those. We also have some charts in there that you can use that just are used really to identify the strategies in your grade level. My suggestion on these charts is really to cover up those strategies and reveal them as your students have taken ownership of those. We also have number string cards in there. And so in those number string cards, there's 120 number strings. So they are arranged by strategy. And then we have the math talk book that includes 60 math talks that really, the idea is it's that one problem, and then we show multiple ways that that one problem can be solved. And then of course we include those demonstration manipulatives that are needed as those visual tools. So if you were looking at those dot patterns, you would have picture and dot cards that would go with that number string. The one thing that we saw with the arrays, we have what's called flexitable grid arrays that we can fold into all those different array sizes. So I can fold one into a 10 by 7, but then I can fold another one into a 9 by 7. So that they can see and compare and connect and see that relationship. So looking at number strings a little more closely in Daily Math Fluency, it comes with 120 that are organized by strategy. We would suggest that you do number strings around 3 to 4 times per week. This allows teachers to really hone in on one strategy at a time to really help kids start to construct it and take ownership of it. It is considered a 10-minute routine. So just one second, doesn't want to. There we go. It is considered a 10-minute routine. Oh, it flipped over that. So what does a number string card look like? This is an example. It tells you, it identifies what strategy you are constructing. So it tells the teacher, this is the strategy we're going to construct with this number string. On the left-hand side, it tells the teacher the action that needs to happen. So in this case, there's a reckon rec involved. So it would tell you how to slide the beads over, what the beads should look like. In the middle, it tells you the questions that you need to ask. And then that goal part is really important because it's what you're listening for your teacher, for your students to say. And that goal is based on what the strategy you are constructing. You're going to hear other things than what it says in that goal, and that's okay. But we as a teacher just need to know that's what we're looking for. And then on the right-hand side, it shows how to model that. So what does that look like modeling? Either through an equation or actually using the Reckon Rec itself. Then looking at our K5 manipulatives as a whole, this just shows you like what grade levels certain manipulatives are used. So we use a Reckon Rec in K1 and 2 because we're really building that additive thinking. In grades K and 1, we use a number path because we are still working on that idea of counting, and number paths do a great job of that. We have picture and dot cards in K and 1, but we also have them in 3 and 4. They are not the same set. 3 and 4 is working on multiplicative reasoning. K and 1 is working on that additive. We have 10 frame cards. We have posters that have open number lines on them already drawn for them so that the teacher just has to actually write on the poster. We use equations. We don't actually have a manipulative for that. But that is something, that is a tool that we use to model our thinking. We have our 120 bead Reckon Rec line. This is a nice scaffold to the open number line. It still uses that 5 and 10 structure, but it's a really nice tool. The ratio table is used in grades 3, 4, and 5 to build that multiplicative reasoning. And then we have used open arrays or area models, those graph paper arrays that you saw demonstrated in the number stream. In 5th grade, we have a few extra different ones that we use because we're really getting into those fraction and decimal operations. So we use 2-color magnetic counters. We have the Cuisenaire rods and the fraction circles that represent using what we call the clock model in those. So when we're thinking about our math talks have 60 math talks. We suggest using these 1 to 2 times per week. Again, this is providing that opportunity to elicit multiple strategies. And again, it's only a 10-minute routine as well. What does our math talk look like? Our page looks just like this. It starts with the problem. This is the problem we would display. And then what we've done is we've identified 4 different ways a student might look at 5 plus 3. Of course, there are more than these 4 ways, but what we've done is try to identify the 4 ways that are either most efficient or what we know we've heard students say when they do this. We've also modeled it for you as well. So if you need help, what does this look like to be modeled? We've done that as well. We give some facilitation tips, so how to get the math talk started, and then what questions you can ask. But this just kind of gives you an idea of strategies. So remember that we saw those charts that showed like counting on, it really is going to be used throughout K and all the way up in different forms of numbers. So our strategies build upon each other and don't change from grade level to grade level. What changes are the numbers that we're working with. And we do introduce a few new strategies based on the numbers as well. But you can see that we have, these are our basic fact additive strategies. And then we have our multi-digit strategies. So you can look at this one. So in grade 2, we really get into multi-digit addition and subtraction. But then when we get to 3, 5, these are the same strategies. So we're not teaching new strategies, we're building upon those, maybe changing the numbers that they're working with. It could be in 4th grade, in 5th grade, we're working with decimals and fractions. You can see doubles using partial products, we're getting into those multiplicative strategies, but you notice that the strategies are not changing. They're the same, they're consistent. So Daily Math Fluency, we have 2 pieces to it. One piece is our Daily Math Fluency Kit, which is what I just went through, that it has the 120 number strings and the math talks, and then all the demonstration manipulatives. But what we know is that once students have constructed strategies and they've taken ownership of those, they need to practice those strategies. So that is what our Daily Math Fluency Centers does. Daily Math Fluency Centers are 40 activities per grade level that are based on the same strategies you are constructing in the number string cards. So these, you get all the student manipulatives because these are student used. So those are the student size manipulatives, but you get all the demonstration manipulatives, or not demonstration, all the manipulatives you need as well in that centers kit. So now we get to hear from Catherine Castillo. Very excited to get to hear her. She has been working with her teachers and using Daily Math Fluency. And so we just want to hear from her about kind of their journey and things. So very excited to introduce you to Catherine Castillo.
I started out as a classroom teacher and then went into a numeracy coaching role where I also worked with individual students through math recovery. And then now I am in the position that I am as coordinator of 21st Century Numeracy, which basically means I'm our K-12 math coordinator for Springfield Public Schools in Missouri. We have about 25,000 students, and I'm going to kind of just take you through, if you want to go ahead and advance the slide, our journey with Number Talks.
And there we go.
Thank you. Okay, so basically, we have been doing a lot of research and reading around what best practices are. And our problem really came about by the understanding that time testing was proven to be detrimental to student success, and it wasn't really building that enduring number sense for kiddos. And so we set out to look to a more strategy-based fluency approach, and we knew that that vehicle was going to be Number Talks, just from different conferences and research that we had been exposed to, reading through the NCTM publications. So I'm going to kind of take you through in the next couple of slides what that looked like for us as a large school district. So I came into this position, this is my third year in this position, and I had had the opportunity to use Number Talks in my classroom and to coach teachers at all three of my sites as a numeracy coach with Number Talks. And what we were seeing with Number Talks was that kids were more engaged, they were more likely to talk about their thinking and to justify their reasoning. And we really knew that those were going to push those practice standards for mathematics and really get kids to be thinkers instead of just like consumers of mathematics. So we started out by doing some mandatory professional development. We have some in-service days, and sometimes we identify those as mandatory sessions for groups of teachers. So for our K-5 teachers, they went through, this kind of happened at the same time we were kind of moving towards a workshop model, and we showed them the Joe Bowler Mathematical Mindsets video, her TED Talk on that, and then looked deeply at NCTM's definition of fluency as well as some other sources. We then started offering just some additional optional professional development. So at the time, Number Talks, really the best resource out there for us, which is a great resource, is the Sherry Parrish book. She's got 2 of them on Number Talks, and so I told teachers, if you guys come to this training, I will purchase you that book, and you will have a set of Number Talks that you can take back to your classroom. And so they also had some, so during that training, we watched some videos of Number Talks in the classroom. And this was kind of happening at the same time that we were introducing teachers to the idea of subitizing and using rec and recs to really build that understanding of composing and decomposing numbers. So for our district professional development, we held after-school workshops for K2 grade bands on Number Talks and 3-5. At Activate SPS, which is our in-service day, we did Number Talk sessions there, and we also ended up entering some starting a deep dive workshop where we really went into like recording student strategies and what does that look like and feel like as a teacher. And then I offer a year 1 and a year 2 numeracy academy to our K-5 teachers, which is also optional. And we actually, the first year, we study that book, Mathematical Mindsets by Joe Bowler. And one of the things that teachers are asked to do is they do kind of a deep dive into number talks, and then they go back and try one in their classroom. And then we come back together and we talk about it. And then I did some site-specific training. So principals would say, hey, you know, I've got several people who are interested in this. Can you come out to our site and just talk to them about that and do some training? And then I've modeled some lessons, and some of our coaches have modeled lessons for teachers. So the feedback that we got after those trainings was, this is awesome. I love what I'm seeing kids do, and I love the conversations that students are having. But I really just don't have that background knowledge to know what number talks I should be using. And I'm really not sure that I'm teaching them strategies that are going to help them really have strategies to pull from, like a bank of strategies to consolidate their learning. So that brings us to the next piece, which is I just happened to be talking to my rep at hand2mind, and he was saying, you know, what things are you doing in your district that you think we could help you out with? And I said, well, I'm going to tell you the hot topic right now is number talks, and we would really love to see a grade level specific number talk resource. And I guess the stars aligned because they had just announced Daily Math Fluency. Well, they hadn't announced it yet, but he had some background information, and I said, yes, I want to get this in the hands of teachers as soon as you have this. So I have a committee that was already working on some assessments and different tasks. And so those teachers all said they would like to pilot this. And we did that for about, I want to say 4 months, something like that. And the feedback was amazing because what Daily Math Fluency did when they started their, as you can see from their resource, is there's an opportunity to teach student strategies and the opportunity for consolidation. So in the past, we were really just using like a math talk that incorporated a number string, but Daily Math Fluency uses that number string to really teach a strategy and really build up that bank of strategies for students, and then they allow them that consolidation piece in the math talk. So that just seemed to be exactly what our teachers needed, and the feedback was great. So I ended up pushing it out to our principals. I think we have 36 elementaries, and I said, hey, I'm just looking for 5 elementaries to agree to do this with all of their teachers in K through 5. And it was crazy because instead of 5, I got 17 principals saying, we're ready, we want to do it now. So I went out to sites and I set up times to train their staff on how to use Daily Math Fluency, just a quick 1 hour, kind of like the webinar that we're seeing today. And we had a couple of sites who had learning coaches, our title buildings, where they kind of took the lead on that. So that has been in place now. They started last January, and we really just from the feedback have decided this is something that we're going to use for our entire district. So we're in an adoption process right now, and we're reviewing resources for core, but we, based on that pilot feedback, have already decided that we will be putting Daily Math Fluency in the rest of our elementary schools starting in August. So the other thing that can you go back for just a second?
Oh, I sure can, sorry.
No, you're fine. That visual there, I wanted to kind of explain that. I'm a big visual learner, especially when we think big picture in our district. And one of the things that made us change is we decided we needed to make that a requirement in our math block, and that number sense routine was going to be something that we started out with every single day. Now, some teachers decide that they want to use it as part of their closure, and sometimes they use it as a mini lesson because in kindergarten, first and second grade, sometimes those hit your standard exactly. So we modified our structures to have those number sense routines in both of the structures for math. So some days we do math workshop, other days we do whole group problem solving. So you can go ahead and push forward now, Brittany. So this was really what we are wanting to do across our district. So we're replacing time testing district-wide with strategy-based fluency, and that is almost complete. I've kind of talked to you about that. And then we're adopting a problem-based core resource. So we just did this in our 6-8, and then we're reviewing for K5 and AGA right now. And just really creating that growth mindset about sharing messages about mistakes, speed, and ability that Joe Bowler and Carol Dweck's research brought about. And then utilizing the NCTM publication Catalyzing Change to begin conversations about equitable pathways. So we just have been really focused on what are best practices according to NCTM and NCSM, and we've utilized a lot of their publications like Catalyzing Change, but also Principles to Actions. So that's kind of our journey in our district, and it's going to take a while. I wanted to say that just advice for those of you that are thinking about taking this on is that it's a huge project, and you have to be patient, and it's going to take time, and it's going to take time to start seeing results. But the results that we've seen immediately is the difference in the conversations that kids are having, and just that numerate environment is just, it's a huge change. So I just put these last two slides in there so that you could kind of see our demographics in Springfield. So you can see our race and ethnicity and our lunch status there. Just about half of our district is free and reduced lunch. And then I think I might have one more slide in there. And then this kind of shows you the breakdown of our special education, ELL, gifted, and free and reduced. So if you're a district administrator and you wanted to kind of see, oh, how does Springfield compare to us? Hopefully that will be useful for you. So that's kind of our journey.
Well, thank you so much, Catherine, for sharing your experience. It sounds like you're doing amazing things in your district, and can't wait to hear more about how Daily Math Fluency is having impact there. So, but thank you very much for sharing that experience. I know that's always nice as an administrator to be able to hear from another administrator and how that's working in your district.
Hey, Brittany.
Yes.
Before you move on, Catherine, can you tell us how long your math block is?
So we only have a 60-minute block. There are certain grade levels in schools, some of our title schools who have a 90-minute, but district-wide we're pretty much at a 60-minute math block. So we tell teachers Daily Math Fluency really takes 10 minutes or less. It does. And so that happens before additional instruction happens.
Awesome, thank you. Okay, go ahead, Brittany, sorry.
No, that's perfect. No, it's a great question, because it's always important. So now I'm trying to get back control. So just 1 second, it's gonna flip one of these days. So, okay, so let's talk about what's new for 2020. So we have some exciting news of what's coming in January 2020. One of those things is just if I can get this. Sorry. One of those things is going to be Daily Math Fluency, but for grades 6 through 8. So one of the things that we heard was, you know, K5 is great, but do you have this for 6-8? And so we do, starting in January 2020, we will have Daily Math Fluency grade 6-8. It's building off the same strategies that K5 did, but it is adding proportional reasoning. So if you think about Pam Harris's model that she has for developing mathematical reasoning, we are really, we're gonna still have a lot of additive pieces and multiplicative, but we are going to really hone in on the proportional reasoning. It's going to include some of the same manipulatives that you see in K5. However, we also have a new manipulative called the percent bar. So it's going to help with those percents. Our lead author, some of you may know the name and some of you may not, but if you don't, please feel free to go on Twitter and find her. Her name is Michelle Reinhardt. So she just transitioned she's going to Harvard to get her doctorate in education. So she has done a lot of work around, and she was also somebody who works very closely with Pam Harris. So we are very excited to have this new product of 6-8 coming in January 2020. Then let's look at the next one. So another product that's coming in January 2020 is Math Fluency Intervention. So one of the things that we hear is that in grade 5 is, built around working with we do a lot of whole numbers that are larger, and then we do some fractions and decimals. But sometimes we hear, oh, I just need something for those basic facts for those 5th graders. And so what we have done is, not just for 5th grade, but for any grade level, what we've done is we have we have number strings and math talks as an intervention tool, but we've honed it around the idea of basic addition and subtraction facts. So that is one of our kits. And then we have multi-digit addition and subtraction, basic multiplication and division facts, multi-digit multiplication, division, fraction, decimal operations, and we give you the option that if you want to bundle all 5 of those kits, you can bundle those. So if you have an intervention teacher at your campus that doesn't want to have all those different the grade level kits, what we've done is we've really honed in on what is it that those students are struggling with, and then you're able to pull those. So it will consist of 60 number strings and 30 math talks, and we also have a progress monitoring tool so that the teacher can keep up with where they are and where we're trying to nudge them to go. So that is that is something new. So we are very excited about that. That's coming in January 2020. So I think, Kristen, we are now at questions. I think we have a few minutes.
We do, and we are going to do the giveaway first, and then I'll go ahead and field a couple of questions.
That sounds awesome.
Let me see here. The kit is going to go to Tom, and is it DeFazio? I hope I said that correctly. So you are the kit winner. Yay. We will send you information on that, and I hope you're excited because it's an awesome kit. Okay. Yes, we do have a couple of questions, so we can try to get through these here. Okay. Let's see. Let's start with, give me 1 second here. First of all, comments that it was a great webinar, so that's always good. Are teacher materials available in a digital format?
So the answer to that is not at this time. They are not. We can, however, work with the district if needed. So,
are the DMF centers different problems than in the kit?
So the DMF centers are actually games and activities. They are not number strings or math talks. So the answer to that would be yes. What's not different is the games and activities are built around the same strategies that the number strings and math talks are working on.
Awesome. Can you use the Rec and Rec in grades 3, 4, and 5?
You can use a Rec and Rec in grades 3, 4, and 5, but it would only be for basic facts. So if you were doing that intervention piece and you were working on basic facts, we are definitely, for addition and subtraction, we're definitely going to use a Rec and Rec. We just don't have it in grades 3, 4, and 5 at this time.
Okay. Are the math talk pages on separate cards or in a book?
The math talk is in a book, and each page is a separate math talk.
Okay, awesome. Let me just see. These are great questions, guys. I love having lots of questions here. Is Versatiles part of the kit or center? Is it included in the center at all?
No, we do not use Versatiles in Daily Math Fluency Centers.
And I think, is there accountability embedded in the DMC? Oh, that's a good question.
Yes, so we do have a piece of accountability. So on each Daily Math Fluency Center card, there is a journal prompt that is in recognition to what they have just done. It makes them reflect on the game or activity itself. So each one does have a journal piece.
Okay, awesome. And with the new 6-8 math fluency, how long per day do you recommend? Is it the same?
So we would say it's about the same. I did poll some 6-8 teachers, and so you could, some people 10 minutes, that would be definitely max, but you could do 5 minutes, because what you just have to recognize is that if you don't have to necessarily go through an entire string in one setting, even though that would be ideal. The main thing would be as long as you did a couple of the problems, because you've got that helper problem and then the next problem, that would be important of where you stop. But so you could make it a 5-minute routine if you needed to.
Okay. And then the last one, and I think I know the answer to this, but we'll confirm. Is it possible to just get the books if they already have the manipulatives?
The answer to that at this time is no, that is not an option at this time.
Okay. And does the new intervention kit have journal prompts as well?
The new intervention kit does not have journal prompts. What it has is just the extra added thing would be the progress monitoring tool, and it's rearranged in a different way.
And I have seen the progress monitoring tool because I'm using that with a pilot in Alabama right now, and it's great. So lots of great feedback, Brittany. I think that is it for right now. The only other question was, am I going to be able to watch this webinar? And the answer to that would be yes. The recording will be shared, so that's something that you can share with others. It will be posted on the site. If you have teachers who want to view this, they can go in and put their information in the form, and it will allow them to download the webinar. So it will be accessible. Great job, Brittany and Catherine. Thank you so much. The audience, you definitely get a high five for engagement. So thank you for interacting with Brittany and answering questions and being involved in asking questions. We so appreciate each of you coming. I hope it was beneficial, and I think that's it.
Yes, thank y'all very much. If you ever need to get in touch with me, that's my Twitter handle. And so also hand2mind.com math fluency also has some more information if you want more information about Daily Math Fluency. Y'all been awesome. Great. Thank y'all for joining us today.
Take care. Bye-bye.